I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Israel and the Palestinian Authority have reached a historic water agreement. The Israeli government narrowly avoids U.S. foreign aid cuts. And get your tissues ready because a viral new Israeli-Palestinian song is a real tearjerker. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. Now here's our breaking story of the day. Israel and the Palestinian Authority have reached a historic water agreement that could save the Dead Sea. The deal will lead to the construction of a 137-mile-long pipeline from the Red Sea to the Dead Sea. The new canal claims to provide desalinated water for Israel, Jordan, and the Palestinian Authority, and to replenish the rapidly shrinking Dead Sea. The agreement has just been announced at a Jerusalem press conference attended by U.S. Middle East envoy Greenblatt, along with Israel's regional cooperation minister and the head of the Palestinian Water Authority. It's part of a much larger trilateral arrangement between Israel, the PA, and Jordan, and Greenblatt is calling the deal an omen of things to come.
As we all know, water is a precious commodity in the Middle East. The United States welcomes the agreement reached by the Palestinian Authority and the government of Israel, which will allow for the sale of up to 33 million cubic meters of water from Israel to the Palestinian Authority. In addition, we hope that this deal will contribute to the healing of the Dead Sea, and that it will help not only Palestinians and Israelis, but Jordanians as well.
It looks like the U.S. is going to be cutting about $10 billion worth of foreign aid, but it doesn't seem like Israel is going to be affected. U.S. President Donald Trump wants to cut $17 billion from the U.S. foreign aid budget to help pay for new expenditures, including his controversial wall between the United States and Mexico. But it looks like House Republicans aren't on board with all of his plans. They want to keep the $3 billion of yearly aid to Israel and $1.5 billion of aid to Egypt as is. They're on board with cutting U.S. payments to the UN by $600 million, however, and cutting economic aid to unstable countries by $4.2 billion. Unlike economic aid, U.S. military aid typically acts as a gift card or line of credit to purchase U.S.-made arms and equipment from companies like Boeing and Lockheed Martin. So it essentially acts as a subsidy for the American arms industry. For Israel, it also acts as a source of funding for its missile defense programs, the Iron Dome short-range system, the medium-range David Sling, and the long-range Arrow defense system. The Iron Dome system, which mostly shoots down domestically produced Qassam rockets from the Gaza Strip, costs hundreds of millions of dollars a year to operate. Last year, the United States signed a $38 billion 10-year defense package to Israel, the largest ever aid agreement between the United States and any other country. An American bill threatening to cut U.S. aid to the Palestinian Authority for providing financial support to the families of terrorists has gained unanimous support among Washington lawmakers. So why is it suddenly hitting the wall on the Senate floor? Well, ILTV's Aaron Porce joins us in the studio now to tell us more about what's going on with the Taylor Force Act. So Aaron, what is the problem now? Why is there this sudden change of heart?
So it's not so much that the senators in question are having a change of heart over the Taylor Force Act. It's more that there are things that were not considered previously that are now they just really want to make sure that they factor those things into their calculations with this bill.
Interesting. So what are those, what are these things that they're now factoring in? They weren't factoring in
primarily, they just want to be absolutely sure that anything that when this bill is enacted, if it should be enacted, it will not interfere with Israeli-Palestinian security cooperations or regional stability.
Interesting. Well, is that a legitimate possibility, or is this something?
It's definitely possible, and they want to, cross their T's and dot their I's and just be absolutely sure. But it's anyone's guess right now what the outcome will be on a bill that hasn't yet been enacted.
Right.
But I'll tell you what people are thinking on the ground. Let's look at my report.
Surprisingly, the main opposition to this legislation has reportedly come from Israel. Israeli officials allegedly fear that weakening the PA would ultimately also hurt Israel, even though weakening the PA is exactly what the bill aims to do. Speaking at the Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing regarding the Taylor Force Act, former United States Ambassador to Israel Dan Shapiro said, quote, Stability in the West Bank, both economic and political, serves Israel's security interests by dampening the atmosphere in which more Palestinians might be drawn to extremism." End quote. The act, named for United States Army officer Taylor Force, who was stabbed to death in a terror attack in Israel, aims to reduce annual payments to the Palestinian Authority from roughly $500 million to just $60 million, in response to continued Palestinian incitement to terror. Despite enjoying support from both sides of the political aisle for its attempt to serve justice, though, the future of the bill is on shaky ground. Just to be sure all aspects are considered, some senators even requested yesterday that a June letter signed by hundreds of top-level Israeli officials be submitted to the record. The letter claims that the bill, as it's currently written, would undoubtedly spur a security crisis in the Middle East.
The Israeli Security Cabinet has put a 10-day freeze on plans to massively expand the Palestinian city of Qalqilia in the Israeli-controlled part of the West Bank. Various ministers in the government coalition were reportedly caught off guard by the plans to build up to 14,000 new housing units in Qalqilia, a city in Area C that lies just a few miles from Tel Aviv. While the military establishment as well as Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman have said the plan was discussed and approved in the cabinet, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Lieberman never told the cabinet the plan involved the construction of 14,000 housing units. The cabinet will reconvene in 10 days to make a final decision on the plan, which Lieberman says will incentivize the Palestinians to maintain peace and quiet. But other political figures like Education Minister Naftali Bennett are expressing serious concerns when it comes to expanding a Palestinian city so close to major Israeli population centers. And settlement leaders like Yossi Dagan want to know when the Prime Minister will devote a little more time to advancing the construction plans for Israelis in the West Bank and throughout the country. The Greek Orthodox Church of Jerusalem has reportedly sold some of its real estate holdings to Israeli developers, and Palestinian members of the church are saying this is illegal under Jordanian law. But it looks like the divisions in the church run deeper than that. ILTV's Max Keisler has the scoop. Max?
Well, there's two things going on here. One, real estate in Jerusalem can be pretty complicated. A lot of it's actually owned by various churches, leased to Israeli organizations. Let's not get into that. Second thing, the Greek Orthodox Church. The clergy is entirely Greek, but the vast majority of the members are Arabic speaking. And sometimes we see some tension there, and a lot of times it's expressed at the church leaders.
Interesting. Well, let's check out your report for some more details.
Palestinians in the West Bank and Jordan are in an uproar following reports that the Greek Orthodox Church has sold over 1,000 acres of land in Jerusalem to private Israeli developers. Although the land lies on the Israeli side of the 1949 armistice lines, they're calling for the ouster of the church leader, Patriarch Theophilos III, saying that he has no right to sell off church lands. Although he's a Greek national, the Patriarch holds a Jordanian passport, and under Jordanian law, it may in fact be illegal to sell church lands. But that's not their only problem. Arab members of the church say that it's unfair for Greek clergy to control the administration, but members of the Arab Central Orthodox Council say calls to replace the clergymen are far-fetched. It's not just Palestinians who are up in arms. The lands are old Jerusalem neighborhoods, having been leased by the Jewish National Fund from the Greek Orthodox Church since the 1950s. Thousands of Israelis live on what they thought was JNF leased property. Now it's owned by unknown real estate developers, which could affect home ownership.
Since the early 2000s, tens of thousands of Africans have made their way into Israel, fleeing political instability and poor economic conditions in their home countries. Now, a new Israeli measure to withhold part of the paychecks of these illegal African immigrants is a calculated attempt to pressure them to leave. New Israeli tax rules call for employers of African migrants to deduct 20% of their wages. The money is then placed in a fund which can only be accessed when the migrants leave the state. Eritrean migrant Teklit Michael fled his country to avoid getting drafted in the military, which is known for treating conscripts brutally and forcing them to serve indefinitely. He survived a dangerous journey across the Sinai Peninsula to find asylum in Israel and believes it's obvious what the goal of the new law is.
This law is not helping me to live in Israel or to survive as human beings, but in opposite, that break my spirit and break me as a person. It doesn't give me any chance to survive as human being because I'm a survival of dictatorship. Not just me, every asylum seeker is a survival of dictatorship and genocide. So we are here just to ask asylum. We are not here to grab jobs of Israelis. We are not coming here to stay permanently, like forever. One day we'll leave will left Israel and to go back to our home. That's our dream. This is also my personal dream.
Israel has granted asylum to fewer than 1% of the non-Jewish migrants who have applied. African migrants work many low-wage jobs in the Israeli service sector, and Israeli restaurant owners are concerned with the effect these regulations will have on their businesses.
This is a huge problem for the industry because we don't have alternative for this worker. We don't have nobody in the Israeli society want to work in cleaning and cleaning tables and dishes. So they have this worker, we depend on them.
It's not just economics. Israeli restaurant managers also have moral qualms about this new response. It's not just economics. Israeli restaurant managers also have moral qualms about this new responsibility.
המדינה מבקשת ממני להיות בין הפטיש לסדן ולהיות זה שהמוציא להורג, המוציא לפועל, השליח, ובעצם להיות זה שגוזל מהעובדים שלי, הנאמנים והטובים האלה, שרק באים לעשות את העבודה שלהם על הצד הטוב ביותר כל יום, ולקחת מהם עוד 20% מהנטו.
Today's cities aren't just places where a lot of people live and work. They're full of intricate networks that keep the water running, the transit on time, and the city functioning. A single car crash in the wrong place can bring infrastructure to a halt. But what if you could anticipate accidents and congestion before they even occur? That's where WayCare comes in. Joining me now in the studio to tell us more is WayCare CEO Noam Meital.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I'm excited to hear about this. What does WayCare do?
So what WayCare is doing is working with cities in the US, Israel as well, leveraging predictive analytics to take the data from the city, also from other sources from vehicles as well. And through that, provide them predictive analytics that enables them to optimize the traffic systems and know, as you mentioned in the intro, where events are going to happen that are likely to lead to traffic accidents and congestion.
Interesting.
Based on that, taking action, enabling the first responders.
So explain that a little bit. I mean, is this, in real time that it's able to
Let's take an example. If we look at the way police enforcement is spread out today in most cities in the US, they react to traffic accidents as they occur. What WayCare is helping cities do is take their data, both historically and real time, and give them an insight into where these road sections are likely to be dangerous in the next two hours.
Well, shouldn't we be just changing that issue in the first place? I mean, I guess the idea is to then make sure that there are more people watching these areas and aware that they're high risk areas, right?
Exactly. So the goal is, instead of reacting to the accident, why can't we flip that equation and instead be proactive in putting the first responders and police forces in the areas that are prone for those accidents before they occur. So that's an example. Another example is identification of incidents, not only through the data that the city has, but also through vehicle data themselves. And by enabling that, enabling action much sooner so that we can clear the site much quicker and avoid the congestion that all of us experience both here in Israel, in the US, and all around the world.
It's interesting. This is almost it reminds me of Waze in its beginnings, where it's like, when police were close to you, or what area is congested, what area has a accident taking place, right? So it's kind of like a better version, like a bigger and better version, but obviously it's not a GPS system.
Well, what we're really enabling here is thinking about the next step of where we're going as cities and smart transportation.
So it's more from that side. It's not the individual user that's driving their car necessarily.
Right. So this is something that a city typically has a traffic management center that really decides how we get from point A to point B. They control the traffic lights, the police officers, first responders. We're enabling them to be smarter in their decisions and utilize new technologies
to
optimize traffic.
So how did you come up with this idea?
Really, it started we looked at the problem of traffic accidents, which is one of the biggest problems in the world if you look at traffic fatalities. And we were just amazed at how little resources are put towards this problem, both from a technological standpoint, also from an investment standpoint. And so we saw this as a really big problem that we could tackle using our technology and new applications. And from there, it grew into something much, much larger, which is just the future of how cities are going to manage their transportation and mobility within the city.
Interesting. Well, it seems like you guys have created something that's really going to have a positive impact on the future of our cities. I hope that they start using that here in Tel Aviv if they haven't already. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
All right. The Israeli Navy's elite Navy SEAL unit spent Tuesday running a military exercise straight out of an action movie. They practiced freeing hostages from a seized boat. The Shayetet 13 unit is one of the most highly trained and secretive units in Israel, and possibly the world. Volunteers for the unit train for a whole 20 months and serve as active soldiers for a minimum of 4.5 years. Members of the unit have assassinated Syrian generals from boats off of the coast of Syria, raided Iranian weapons smuggling boats, and killed terrorists in Tunisia. And that's just what we know about. Beginning on Monday, they ran a drill to prepare for the scenario of an Israeli civilian boat being taken over by terrorists. In the simulation, the commandos took over the ship and neutralized the terrorists after negotiations failed. The IDF's head of naval operations says that the Navy will continue to train constantly to prepare for the defense of the State of Israel. We've all seen science fiction movies with giant robot soldiers and android commandos, but it looks like the Israeli army is actually turning sci-fi into real life. The IDF has just developed a Hummer that can operate in the field on its own. The IDF has just revealed the new high-tech project with a YouTube video showing the self-driving vehicle navigate down a road, turning its own steering wheel and shifting its own gears. The Hummer is remote-controlled by an operator up to 3 kilometers away, but the IDF is promising to extend the vehicle's range. Soon it'll be used for transporting ammo, fuel, and equipment to soldiers in the field. But the 50 cal gun mounted on its roof suggests that it might have other functions if it has to. The unmanned Hummer is part of an IDF trend toward automation. The Army is making great use of aerial drones, aquatic intelligence-gathering machines, and even remote-controlled gun turrets near volatile borders. There's a fairly common saying that claims that art is a personal reflection of society, but art can also be a reflection of what we hope society to be. Well, joining me now in the studio to tell us about her amazing artwork and the stories that inspire them is Israeli artist Orit Melton. Thank you so much for joining us, Orit.
Thank you for having me.
I see this incredible, it's a photograph painting, it's unclear from here.
This is the digital art.
Digital art,
yes,
wow.
I made it in the computer. When somebody hears that I made it in the computer, they say, oh, the computer. But I am always saying that the computer is not painting by itself.
Of course.
Behind it, there must be an artist with skills and talent that draw it and paint it and have skills in graphic applications.
Absolutely.
And there are many advantages to this kind of art because you can spread the message and you can print copies for limited edition and to spread the message. That's
what is the message? I mean, first I'd just like to say that when I initially saw this, I could not tell whether you had painted it or if it was digital. I know that people who are watching probably can't see that experience.
I painted with a digital brush.
A digital brush,
and
right.
The computer is a canvas and the mouse is a brush. And I painted with a digital brush.
Amazing.
And it is also combining of photos, photographs, and
right, because the ground is so realistic. So tell us a little bit about the meaning behind this painting and the work that you do in general.
Yes, I call my art art for the souls because the paintings are coming from a very deep inside me, and I hope to touch the soul, the same point in the soul of the viewer. And as there is an old saying that one picture worth more than 1,000 words.
Yeah, of course.
Because the pictures arise in you emotional experience. And sometimes words are evoking resistance. So since I'm a little girl and I was sitting in the terrace with my father and saw the kaleidoscope in the through the sun, and I was looking for shapes and colors in the sun. I realized after years that this was the beginning of a very precious present that I got from above. Seeing images in my mind that I have a very great urge to to share them and to.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is something that it's clearly straight out of your mind, because, you know, this is a scenario that I don't know if I could come up with that. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So what is next?
Yes, I want to explain about this.
Well, we're running out of time, unfortunately, for this specific painting, but we would like to know where we can see your next work.
My works, where can you see it? I'm going to take a part in a new gallery in Akko, in Old Akko, near the synagogue of the Ramchal, and I have a gallery in my studio in Jerusalem. And you can see me in Google, in Facebook, oritmartin.com, and you can see all the paintings.
All right, well, for all of our viewers, go check out Orit Martin's work. It's beautiful, and thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, a moving song composed by an incredibly talented group of Jewish, Muslim, and Christian women is now going viral on YouTube, and I actually couldn't help but tear up when I heard it myself.
מנשבת מי שם וכביסה מתנפנפת לצילי החומה بين الأرض والسماء ناس كتير بعيشوا سوا
The hit tune Prayer for the Mothers was released by Israeli folk singer Yael Deckelbaum, but the heartfelt tune was made with 14 different female musicians of all backgrounds. Yael is actually the daughter of legendary folk country musician David Deckelbaum, and she's been performing since she was 8 years old. Her latest song, Prayer for the Mothers, is approaching 4 million views on YouTube, and its idea has been in development since 2014, when the Women Wage Peace movement began during the Gaza Strip conflict. The movement is made up of about 20,000 Jewish and Arab women alike, and it calls for the Israeli government to achieve a peace agreement with the Palestinians by 2018. Last October, thousands of the women participated in the March of Hope project, where they walked all the way to the Dead Sea for a joint prayer for peace. It's fair to say that the music video shows just how powerful the movement truly is.
Enroll in eTeacher's online Hebrew courses and quickly discover that it creates the deepest connection to Israel that you could ever imagine.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Israel's a beautiful country, but it could be a lot more beautiful with some more harmonia, which means harmony in Hebrew. Now, Aaron, the first issue when it comes to harmonia is probably just the issue of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but I think you could say, living in Tel Aviv, there are a lot of other issues here as well,
I think
correct?
That one was an obvious choice, but I mean, you have lots of issues with harmonia just within Israel itself. You know, it's not that Israel is a non-harmonia kind of place to be, but it's...
But yeah, it can get a little rough when, you know, there's a lot of road rage here. Sometimes you just want to see people who are honking at each other and say, stop, live in harmonia.
I have to say, I think my favorite story regarding harmonia is between my dog and the cat that was kind of hanging around my building. Hated all dogs until one day my dog wanted to play with him. The cat swatted him across the face real bad. And from then, harmonia. They were totally friends.
Interesting. Well, listen, I hope this weekend is a very harmonia weekend for our viewers. Marle harmonia. So let's turn and check out the weather. Tonight you can expect partly cloudy skies and a low of 75 or 24 degrees Celsius. Keep those water bottles handy though, because temperatures are supposed to rise slightly over the weekend and settle at around 91 or 33 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.54 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.